Yes, I'd like to report a body.
What do you mean a body?
A dead person. It's pretty badly burned.
There was a hammer. There was parts of a baseball bat. He was deceased, and he was in a box. Somebody said it's like a jack-in-a-box.
Is this the type of homicide where they're trying to send a message to somebody? Bad narcotics deal?
We had a Michigan State Police forensic artist draw what this person might have looked like.
We thought within no time we'd be able to identify this gentleman because of the unique dental structure, but we didn't.
It was after work hours, and I started receiving a couple of emails that night. Are you worried about us being here and talking to you?
I'm worried about who might come chase me. Yeah, I'm worried about that. Damn right. I'm worried.
Lower County 911, what's the address of your emergency crisis? Okay, your wife is in a bar. You said she's unresponsive.
This is what he's going to tell you.
How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir. The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything?
We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
It's a rural area, a lot of blueberry fields. If you're going to dump a body, that was a great place to dump a body.
Yes, I'd like to report a body.
What do you mean a body?
A dead person.
I was a blueberry farmer that called 911 and reported it.
It's in my field, and it's burned. And it wasn't there yesterday.
Can you tell if it's a male or female, or?
It's pretty badly burned.
It was basically in the middle of nowhere. The body was found in one of those old trunks. The fire had gone out, but it was charred beyond recognition.
There was no way that you could look at it and determine any type of specific facial recognition. There was no availability of fingerprints from the burning or anything of that nature. There was a hammer. There was parts of a baseball bat. Around the victim's neck, there was a partially burned piece of rope or cord, and there was some plastic, like a bag, that had burned. It appeared to us that the subject had been struck in the head, and also it appeared that a plastic bag was put over its head, and a noose-type rope was put around the neck.
We thought, well, because this individual was found in an area that is the blueberry fields, we got to have a lot of migrants that come in and out. We thought, okay, well, maybe this is a migrant worker. We were grabbing at straws trying to identify this individual.
Is this the type of homicide where they're trying to send a message to somebody? Bad narcotics deal?
We had a Michigan State Police forensic artist draw what this person might have looked like.
I think the biggest thing we had there was the dental work. This individual had what was called, they called it a flipper.
We thought within no time we'd be able to identify this gentleman because of the unique dental structure, but we didn't.
We basically had a funeral for the unidentified subject at that point.
They did a pauper's funeral, and he was buried in a cardboard box, and the only people attending the funeral were myself, a couple detectives.
That's when the sheriff reached out to a professor in the communications department at the nearby Hope College, who used students to produce true crime documentaries.
I said, you know, we got one case And I'm convinced we could probably solve that case if we can identify our victim. And I think we're ready to have your group of students in and give them everything we got.
The result was a 50-minute-long film titled Jack in the Box.
There's no disrespect in it, but what was the most unique thing that we thought about this case?
He was deceased, and he was in a box. Somebody said it's like a jack in a box.
Using crime scene video and photos, the professor hoped the documentary would generate new leads for the sheriff and his detectives.
That's our goal here, to tell a story so that maybe somebody will tell him who is the victim.
We had copies made. They went out to law enforcement in different places.
The film was released in 2005, shown at the local movie theater, and sent to Michigan TV stations.
Both at that time and down the road, nothing up to that point led anywhere to help solve this. I didn't ever give it up, but as things came up, we'd take a look at it and put it back on the corner of the desk afterwards.
When I left the sheriff's department, Jack in the Box was still an open case.
Never had anything where it went this long.
April of 2015, it was after work hours, and I started receiving a couple of emails that night. I would call them somewhat cryptic. The first one said, actually said, "I'm scarred," with the next one that came soon after that. I say, "Calm down." And you kind of tread that water carefully until you can make further contact.
The emails had the name of Deneen Ducharme, and soon they were talking.
I want to do and say absolutely anything I can to help. What really screwed me up on all of this was the video that I watched.
Deneen had seen the Jack in the Box documentary somewhere on the internet and could identify the victim.
Carvalho, yep, is the last name. Now he had several aliases too. I know he was in jail under a couple of different names.
The victim was Roberto Caraballo, alias Juan Cintron. He'd done federal prison time.
Roberto is his real identity.
It's definitely the best info we'd had in a long time at that point, but I had no way of knowing what it was going to lead to. So I started looking at the federal prison records.
Including Roberto's prison dental records.
And I could pretty well tell they matched. We at least knew who he was at that point.
Deneen said it was a family affair. The victim, Roberto, was her stepfather, the longtime partner of her mother, Beverly McCollum, who she said was the killer.
I'm nervous. She's a master. I'm scared.
I don't know what you're afraid of, if it's legal stuff or if it's really your mom, or both.
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. I mean, anybody in their right mind would be afraid of both.
We learned that there was some falling out between Deneen and her mother that kind of led her to call at this point.
My mother has always been a slut, for a lack of better word.
I didn't push her very hard on things. She was sole source of information at that point. I wanted to keep the relationship good and keep her talking.
Any crime you can think of, she did it. Whatever it took for her to get the next drug, sell her body, sell her possessions, sell her home, her cars, her kids, whatever she could do.
What were her demons of choice?
Any and everything. She did it all.
Are you worried about us being here talking to you?
I'm worried. Yeah, I'm worried my mom's gonna find out. I'm worried about who she might call to come chase me. Yeah, I'm worried about that. Damn right. I'm worried.
What was your name, honey?
Ducharme, Deneen.
Deneen?
Okay.
By the time detectives from Michigan were able to track Deneen down and record her on camera, she was in custody in Jacksonville, Florida on a fraud charge.
That Class B forgery or something like that is what they're saying. So I was like, what the f***?
And in checking out her background going back to her teenage years, detectives had learned that Deneen and her mother both had extensive criminal records, often as a team.
Beverly and Deneen both a lot of theft, a lot of fraud. Well, my best description would be partners in crime.
I know you probably think I'm alive, but I swear to God, I've given you all I can remember.
Deneen had already told detectives that Roberto was murdered at their home in Charlotte, Michigan.
She told us that her mother had killed Roberto, that she was there the night it happened, and she told us that the murder actually occurred in the basement of the house.
What do you remember of the night there in the basement? What do you remember of that?
I remember coming down the stairs. I remember screaming at my mom.
What were you screaming at her about?
I don't even remember. I just remember yelling at her and asking her, and she was crazy, screaming, are you crazy? What is wrong with you? And just keep screaming at her, and just kept screaming at her.
And you remember what you saw down there, though?
I just remember seeing blood on the floor, the bottom of the stairs. That's all I can remember.
She said that Beverly had chipped up a lot of concrete on the basement floor wherever there was blood.
And so when they went to the basement, they didn't see any blood on the ground, but they saw a concrete patch that was newer than the other concrete that was around. And they were actually able to find Robert's blood underneath that patch. That was amazing.
The test also turned up suggestions of the DNA of Deneen Ducharme.
I told you your DNA was in that patch. Would that surprise you?
Yes.
It would?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like yours is in there.
So the woman who had helped give the case new life, pointing the finger at her mother, was now emerging as a suspect herself.
She tried to paint a picture where she had nothing really to do with the murder and didn't know much about it.
You don't remember being down in the basement during the murder?
Hell no. Why would I call you and tell you?
People call me and tell me way worse stuff than that. I don't know why they do, but
There's no way I would even do that.
why?
There's no way, because it's not in my character. I would never do that.
I'm not saying it was your idea.
I would
That's
never
not
do
what I'm
that.
saying.
I would never even practice play, rehearsal, joke, or kid about it. That's not my personality. No way in hell. Never.
So I'm trying to give you the last chance here, Deneen. I really am. Because I'm telling you that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that points a little different direction. I mean, I think some of the stuff you told me was true. And
She put herself in the van during the drive to dispose of the body and when the body was burned in Ottawa County. And she also informed us that there was a third subject present when the murder occurred named Chris, which this was the first we had heard about this subject.
That would be the only person that confirmed that I didn't plan, plot, or have anything to do with this.
It took detectives more than a year pouring through social media to track down Chris McMillan.
That was a huge breakthrough when I was able to identify Chris. I remember telling him that he had probably been waiting for that knock on the door for several years, and he kind of nodded his head and agreed with me.
I was a part of that, all right, and it was a that thing that had to be a part of it.
And Chris hardly confirmed Deneen's version of events.
So who hit him first?
I think it was Deneen.
Chris stated that Deneen had the hammer at first, but Beverly continued to yell at her to give her the hammer. Beverly continued to hit Roberto in the head until the hammer, what Chris said, the hammer stuck in his head.
So I pulled the hammer out of his head, and the next thing I know is he has a bag on his head. And it's blood just all over.
And that's how Roberto met his fate on the basement floor down there. So who carries the box up the stairs?
Deneen and I.
All right, so you carry it upstairs. Obviously, you put it in a van. Is that right?
Yep. Beverly drove out to some dirt road, and
who was all in the van for the drive?
Deneen, myself, and Beverly.
Okay, so what happens when you get to that location?
Take the trunk out and take it down the road and get it on fire.
Deneen was definitely an active participant from the point of Chris's testimony. And Chris had no reason to lie.
I didn't plot or plan any of this. I couldn't tell you if that's something that my mother did, and maybe Chris has confused. But that is definitely not.
Why would he say, though, you were part of that too? I mean, because he doesn't seem like he has any ill will against you.
At that point, we had three suspects in the murder. We had Beverly, her daughter Deneen, who was 21 at the time, and the subject Chris McMillan, who was around 25, I believe, at the time of the murder.
Oh, I do have charges with them? What charges am I being charged with?
Murder.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Holy Oh my god. If I'm convicted of murder, how many years do I have for that? Life, right? Great.
Well,
I love my mother more and more every day. Pray that. Pray that the truth comes out and my mom finally gets what she deserves. And me and Chris don't suffer this.
When I was looking at, young 20s individuals and a woman in her 40s, in my opinion, she was the mastermind, and so I was willing to give both of them deals in order for them to testify against her mom.
But when they went to look for Beverly, they learned she had fled the country.
Beverly met this guy on the internet. He lived in Pakistan. She was looking for the first foreigner she could find because at that point she knew she needed to get out of the country.
Deneen probably told her, I called the cops and they're coming here to talk to us.
When she found this guy, she was on the next plane to Pakistan and was married shortly thereafter. It did not seem out of the norm for Beverly, for the way she lived her life.
She'd used 6 or 7 different last names up to that point.
She would take her children and move all over the country, sometimes different countries.
And even before Beverly fled to Pakistan, she had taken up with a man in Jamaica.
Shortly after Robert's body was discovered in 2002, most of the family moved to Jamaica, where Beverly joined her boyfriend and stayed several years down there.
Detectives learned later that the boyfriend in Jamaica disappeared under mysterious circumstances.
Most of the people, in fact, that we spoke with during the investigation, men and women, were scared to death of her. Just a lot of A lot of suspicious deaths, a lot of missing people.
I don't put anything past my mother, and that's the God's honest truth. I don't. There's nothing that you could tell me that my mom did or didn't do that I'd say you were lying.
And he says the same thing.
So much, to be honest with you, like I keep telling you, like I have spent years doing everything I possibly can to forget.
Yeah, it's she sounds like she's unique. That is for sure. It's being nice.
I refer to her as a spawn of Satan. It's just what I've called her my whole life.
And detectives came to believe the motive for Beverly to kill Roberto was pure greed.
She was used to living a lifestyle of moving around a lot, not having to work. Roberto was in the drug trade business and was making good money doing that.
It was like she resented Robert for all the years she went to visit him in prison, and that was like she resented him for it.
And when Roberto got out of prison, he had completely changed his life. He was reading the Bible every night in the basement.
And Roberto became a devoted father to the daughter he had with Beverly, named Cicely, eager to be a good role model.
Beverly just wasn't having fun. She wanted Roberto to go back into the drug business, and he would not do that, so I think she got sick of that.
Through Interpol, Michigan police put out an international arrest warrant, a so-called red notice for Beverly McCollum, wanted for murder.
As I came to learn, extradition from anywhere is pretty tough if it's outside of the United States.
The prosecutors continued to pursue the charges in court against the remaining two defendants, Deneen and Chris.
Chris McMillan obviously said, you know what, I murdered somebody, I want to take a plea deal, and he received a 15-year prison sentence for his agreement to testify.
But Deneen refused a similar plea deal.
When a person chooses not to take a plea offer, then you go to trial.
And she ended up being convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison.
It's a very ironic twist in this case. Why she called to begin with and didn't let it just ride.
If Deneen would have never sent that initial email, she probably would have never been convicted of a crime. Beverly did help us out by going to Rome, Italy. When she checked into a hotel, they will run you through Interpol, and that's exactly what happened to Beverly.
18 years after the murder, police in Rome announced they had arrested Beverly McCollum.
Nella notte tra il 12 e il 13, riscontrato che a suo carico pendeva un ordine di cattura a livello internazionale emesso dagli Stati Uniti.
She was taken to the jail infirmary in Rome. She had, I believe, had a heart attack of some sort and was clinically dead for just a few seconds, was revived.
And it was only after a 2-year fight in the European courts that Beverly was back on American soil, formally taken into custody and charged as she arrived at the Grand Rapids, Michigan airport.
They would not allow extradition unless I was willing to remove murder 1 because that was a life without parole. So I had to drop the murder 1 and then go straight with the murder 2 and burning dead bodies.
She told her lawyer she planned to testify and reveal what she says really happened in the Jack in the Box murder.
Beverly seems to have incredible luck through her years of slipping out of stuff. She tried to come across as a crippled old lady that would not hurt a fly.
Please be seated. Good morning. Good morning. This morning we will start with opening statement from the prosecutor, Mr. Lloyd.
On May 7, 2002, Robert Caraballo was coming back to his home at 334 Horatio Street. On that day, though, people had already put a plan into place to kill him. And when he arrived home, they put that plan in action. One of the individuals who helped plan Robert's death, who actually helped kill Robert, who helped take him away, and who lit him on fire, is the defendant who sits here today. And at the conclusion of the case, when you review everything, I'll be asking for you to return with a verdict of guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Loy. Mr. Finley.
Today, as Miss Beverly sits here, she is an innocent woman. This means that we don't have to prove anything. The defense has to do nothing.
It's a cold case. 20 years on, people's memories fail.
Remember, this event occurred in 2002. If there is any part of you that believes that there is any other logical theory that you're going to hear about being possible, or that the prosecutor has not ruled out beyond a reasonable doubt, then not guilty is the only verdict that you can render in this case.
Your Honor, the people would call Chris McMillan to the stand.
He was able to talk about how Bev led the charge in wanting this killing and directing Deneen as to what should be done for it to happen.
And Beverly starts to tell Deneen, give me the hammer, give me the hammer. Deneen takes the hammer and with her right hand wants to hit him a couple times on the left side of his head. Beverly jerks the hammer away and with her left hand on the left side of the head, hits him like 3 or 4 more times until the hammer was in his head. I pulled the hammer out. I'm holding the hammer. There's a hole about $half size. I turn back around and there's a bag on his head. Deneen's behind him. He's laying on his back with a rope. Deneen was holding the bag. Beverly was sitting up on top of him to keep him from moving. And he laid like that until the bag quit moving in and out and he quit breathing.
And then the graphic details of disposing of the body.
We poured gas on the body.
Who poured gas on him?
Beverly and I.
You both poured gas on him?
She poured the gas, I lit the fire. When we lit him on fire and we took off up the road.
He displayed no emotion. He displayed no type of concern about his own actions on that particular day. It did seem rehearsed to me.
You testified that Deneen was the one that raised that subject with you first, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it was Deneen's idea to you to kill Robert. She's the one that actually raised the idea with you directly first, correct?
She wanted me to know that her and Beverly were wanting to get rid of him.
It would be fair to say that if Deneen asked you to do something, you would do it.
A little bit, but not quite.
You would try to do what Deneen told you to do because you wanted to have a relationship with her, is that correct?
No, that is not why Robert got killed.
People call Cicely Carballo. Who is Beverly McCallum?
My biological mother.
Okay, and your dad, what was his name?
Roberto Caravaggio.
Cicely was 9 years old at the time.
Did you ever talk to your mom the next day about what happened to your dad or where your dad was?
My mother told me and my sister that my dad had taken off to Canada to go back to his old life without us.
That should tell you all you need to know about Beverly and what kind of person she is.
Cicely testified that it was years later when she confronted her mother about what really happened to her father.
She immediately went into tears and she began to tell me her version of the story.
Okay. What did she tell you about what happened to your father?
Her words were that they had been arguing down in the basement and she was trying to get away, and as she was going up the stairs, my dad began to pull her by her ankles to pull her back down, and that she grabbed the nearest thing she could with her right hand, which happened to be a crowbar is what she said, and she swung it like that, the back of her head, to try to get away from him, and that her words, he started bleeding profusively from the head.
Those were her words.
Yes. Before she knew it, Deneen and her friends were heading downstairs to finish him off.
And it was something that even now, to talk about this in front of the jury with your mom in the room is still painful.
Very.
It was definitely tough for Cicely. It's a miracle. She turned out to be such a great person.
The defense would call Beverly McCallum to the stand, Your Honor.
I think Beverly's a sociopath, and I thought she would probably get on the stand. The day she testified, she was rolled up to the stand and slowly got into her witness chair, but I wasn't buying it.
You understand what you are on trial for, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
It was very clear to me that she wanted to tell what had happened that night, and that she felt that she was the only person that could actually explain what happened that night. The person we've come to know as Robert Caraballo, how do you know Robert?
I was involved with Robert for many years. We're constantly involved, even if he's deceased.
She decided to lead with an Italian accent, and so that was difficult to understand at moments.
Jen, I can barely hear her.
We are constantly involved. I still love that man. I have his child.
And now, did Robert want some new rules to happen at the house?
Yes.
What were those new rules supposed to be?
We discussed that he wanted me to tell my daughter, Deneen, that because of her sexual preference, that he didn't want her there at the house anymore.
Okay.
And that Chris was a bum, and he needed to go as well.
Okay.
Beverly said Deneen had declared herself to be gay.
Did you confront Deneen, or did you have a conversation with Deneen about that?
Yes, I told her that I wasn't going to argue with Robert, and that if she wanted to stay there, she would have to talk to Robert today to come up with something.
Did you happen to see Deneen and or Chris during that time frame?
Yes, they were going. She told me she was going down to talk to Robert.
Beverly said she went to the basement later to see what was going on.
Then at that point, someone grabbed my right ankle. I kind of lost my balance. In the motion, there was a strange tool, about maybe this high.
Okay. So you picked that up, and what did you do with it?
I reached down and I swung back.
Did you make contact with anybody?
Obviously, I hit Robert in the face.
And you went upstairs after that?
Yes, I went upstairs.
Where were you in the house?
I was laying down in the bed in our bedroom.
And what do you remember next?
I remember Deneen coming upstairs, and she said that she needed help, that something happened, and that she said that we had them killed Robert.
Okay. What did you do?
I couldn't even breathe. I was thinking this must be a bad dream and that he's still alive.
Did you call the police?
No, I didn't call the police.
Was there ever a time when you developed a plan to kill Robert?
No, absolutely.
Did you ever use the hammer to hit Robert though?
No.
Did you ever try to suffocate Robert?
No.
Did you ever put a rope around his neck?
No.
Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'm confused, and I don't want to be disrespectful. Is English your second language?
No.
No. Okay. You seem to speak Italian. Why is that?
I speak several different languages, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding a word
I
you're saying.
speak several different languages.
You speak several different languages, and so Italian is the dialect you're giving us today?
I don't have a dialect.
I did find that if I could actually agitate her, surprisingly enough, she would lose the accent and actually be able to speak up louder.
How about you look at me? How about you look at me and answer my questions? That would be what you need to do.
Okay. Do I need to look at it?
She doesn't technically have to.
Understandable, but I can't understand her if she
Okay, I
doesn't.
prefer not to look at you. I prefer to look at the people that I need to talk to.
Well, then let's talk about the truths that you've decided to expound today. The injuries to Robert were a little more than superficial. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, they were terrible.
They were terrible.
Yes.
He died before he was burned up in Ottawa County.
Yes.
Yeah. He died in your basement, correct?
Yes. I know that they had killed Robert that day. Yes.
The day you killed Robert.
I can't hear what you said.
I did not kill Robert.
I believe you just said you killed Robert.
No.
You wanted the fun life that you had before Robert actually came back from prison, didn't you?
I had
You didn't
I
want
had
to
a
be
fun life with
part of
Robert.
this homemaker family life in Charlotte, Michigan, did you?
Oh, I enjoyed my family.
And that's why within 6 weeks of it happening, you're selling the house.
Yeah.
You couldn't stay in that house any longer because you knew that Robert was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you helped kill Robert.
No.
And 6 weeks later, you're back with your long-term love affair in Jamaica. Do I have it wrong?
No, you don't.
No, that's true.
It is time for closing arguments. Very good. Mr. Lloyd.
This is the hammer, ladies and gentlemen. This was the hammer that was located right next to the trunk where Robert was found. And Chris tells you he hears the defendant yelling, "Give me the hammer, give me the hammer." And that with her left hand strikes Robert on the left side of the head, hitting him so hard that it sticks in his head. She portrayed herself as a fragile, old Italian woman who didn't seem to understand English. And how she loved that man, as she said in the very beginning, "I even love him past death." I mean, that'd be a heartwarming statement to make, except for the fact that a man was killed and his body was burned. But see, Robert was the victim in this matter. And as I told you in the beginning of this trial, at the end of this case, I was going to be requesting that you return with a verdict of guilty. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mere presence of my client in the home that night when two other individuals killed someone does not make her guilty of murder. And her actions after the fact can be understood in the terms of a mother who was faced with the fact that her daughter committed a crime, her husband had just been killed, or pseudo-husband had just been killed. There's no motivation that my client had to actually kill Robert at all. There's motivation for Chris and Deneen to have done so. In order for my client to be guilty of second-degree murder, the prosecution has to prove that Beverly caused the death of Robert. And the reasonable doubt would bring you to the conclusion of not guilty. Thank you.
We are back on the record in People versus McCallum. I have been told that the jury has a verdict.
The jury spent only 2 hours in deliberation.
When I heard that they were back with a verdict, based on my experience, I was anticipating the worst.
So on count one, we the jury find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder. On count two, we the jury find the defendant guilty of dead bodies, disinterment, and mutilation.
Thank you. Please be seated.
I looked over at her when the verdict was read. No emotion, stone-faced.
It is through one of the worst imaginable experiences that I appeared to you today as the daughter of the victim, Roberto Caravaggio, and also the daughter of the convicted. Despite her ill will and disgraceful parenting, I am here to face her today as a human you cannot take credit for. May these next words make their way to what was once the soul of my mother. This will be the last time that you see me in the flesh and the last time you hear my voice in the same room. You have taken the life of a beloved man who was striving to improve himself for his own well-being and for his own daughter. While you may have taken my father's life, you will have no hand in his legacy. I am his legacy. My children are his legacy, and his legacy will live on through us. Your legacy will end with you, Beverly.
This case is replete with examples of your dishonesty. What I cannot fathom is that you lied to your daughter that her father abandoned her. The only thing I can do to protect society is to provide you with a long period of incarceration. The defendant's lack of remorse, the gruesomeness of this crime would all warrant that. Please stand, as I know you can stand. On count one, it is the sentence of this court that you will serve 40 to 60 years. On count two, you will serve 10 years to 15 years.
I think we got justice for Roberto and for Cicely and Roberto's family. Not as much justice as I wanted, but Beverly finally got what she's deserved for a very long time. Hopefully she'll never see the outside walls of the prison again.